As professional pilots, many of you are no doubt members of airlinepilotcentral.com. It's the leading professional social networking site for pilots on the web. When you first join APC, you have to sign a Terms of Service agreement which strictly prohibits making political posts in any of the forums. Any of the forums. Here's the problem. Airline Pilot Central's Terms of Service do not apply to the voices of radical conservatism. Political rhetoric, the likes of which has not been seen since the heyday of the National Review, are alive and kicking at Airline Pilot Central forums.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
I warned the co-founder of APC of the epidemic Terms of Service violations on his website, asked him what he was going to do about them, and was methodically ignored. Conservative thought leading is proliferating into the occupation of airline pilots through Airline Pilot Central. In essence, APC has been turned into a propaganda tool to further anti-labor, anti-American family rhetoric. The primary offender of this propaganda is a user named Jungle. However, Jungle isn't just another APC user, he's also a moderator. He uses his powers as a moderator to turn the forum into a right-wing thought-leading stump. I followed Jungle on Airline Pilot Central for about a year. This radical neo-McCarthyist leaves a multitude of anti-communist innuendos splashed everywhere he goes. A short trip back in time will show that any neo-McCarthyist is apt to believe that anyone other than a radical conservative like himself is a communist.
Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
He kicks off his conservative thought leadership with cryptic suggestions to being some sort of a guardian against socialist conspirators on the forum. He's a perfect little Glenn Beck groupie. His professed position at APC is burning the agitprop of the apparat, which is a direct reference to Cold War preventative measures taken to stomp out political dissidents in communist Russia. In direct violation of the no place for politics rule, he comments that he's, quote, just another slave at the Marxist plantation, end quote, on his profile user page. In addition to his open hatred for decidedly liberal Al Gore, Jungle is allowed to regularly rail against the traditional enemies of conservatives like the UN, taxation, welfare, and the labor movement, a movement he very well benefits from as a union member himself. He even opened a thread titled, "Now Unions Fully Stocked Up on Crazy." Crazy because they find merit in FDR's idea of a workers' bill of rights. Jungle has even gone so far to start a thread which links to a video about a vast conspiracy which begins with monkeys and ends with liberals. Some of you may be familiar with a book written in the 1950s by a woman obsessed with murderer William Hickman. In 1958, Ayn Rand released the book Atlas Shrugged to lukewarm reviews and lackluster sales. The book, however, appealed greatly to early radical conservatives like Clifton White, William F. Buckley Jr., the editor of the National Review, and even Alan Greenspan, former Fed chairman. These political radicals adore the book for glorifying free choice, pure laissez-faire, rational selfishness,
greed is good,
discompassion for the less fortunate, and winner-take-all economics. The book rationalizes that the rich, especially men, do not have to live by the same rules as everybody else does because they're job creators, the movers of progress. The perfect manifesto for the right-wing extremist. Even though Rand finished her life collecting Social Security, the book has become the literary cornerstone of the conservative movement. The user and moderator of APC, Jungle, incessantly espouses the virtues of Rand's Atlas Shrugged in the forum. He never fails to seize the opportunity to recommend the novel to any naive, unsuspecting member of the forum. It is clear that Jungle sees the forum as his stomping ground to indoctrinate union-represented pilots into the right-wing radical culture of voting against oneself. Knowing what I did about Jungle, I opened an account on APC and took him on. I made several political centrist comments in direct opposition to his political posts, and before you know it, my replies were removed from the thread. Finally, I confronted Jungle about his obvious use of APC as a message machine for the political right, and my account was suspended. Contrary to the freedom and liberty he espouses through his ultra-capitalist position, he has no problem exercising one of the most communist virtues of them all: censorship. If you post an opinion opposite to that of his conservative demagoguery, he'll simply remove the entire post or even suspend your account. Not so ironically, by systematically allowing breaches of the TOS by conservative radicals like Jungle, the founders of APC are producing the very political effect they purport to disdain: censorship and communism. I say, not so ironically, because it's clear from the founders and the moderators' actions on their website that this is the way conservatives conduct themselves. They rationalize that it's okay to live outside the rules. They seize and hold on to power through lies, forcing some members to live by one set of rules that others need not observe. They create a system wherein losers can't lose and winners cannot win, far from the meritocracy painted in Ayn Rand's fiction novel Atlas Shrugged. As forum members, we are subject to the treacheries of the very vices the moderators and founders rail against in their public rhetoric: a perfect conservative dystopia. As an appendix to the original content of this video, I have had to add the following section. In order to show my willingness to work with site admins, I sent an email to the company that licenses the internet software to Airline Pilot Central. I outlined the TOS violations and demanded action be taken to correct the problem. In order to graphically illustrate the political bias which exists in their forums, I included a preliminary unlisted edit of this video. The very next day after my email was replied to, the IP I was accessing the forums from at the time was blocked. It's obvious that a cover-up is now underway to keep me from reporting on the radical conservative agenda being fostered by Airline Pilot Central. On that note, I will leave you with a quote from another book, Rule and Ruin: The Downfall of Moderation and the Destruction of the Republican Party, from Eisenhower to the Tea Party, Studies in Post-War American Political Development. Conservatives, a fanatical neo-fascist political cult of right-wingers in the GOP, driven by a strange mixture of corrosive hatred and sickening fear that is recklessly determined to control our party or destroy it. Republican Senator Thomas Kuchel, 1966.